What's going on, guys? So today we're going to be doing stuff a little bit different. We're going to be going over wiring an LS engine into an S14 and what items and what wires will need to be connected from the ECU to the car. We're not really going to be doing much on the car today. I'll be showing you a few things and how I connected a few items, but other than that, this is just going to be pretty much like a tutorial on what you need to do to connect your LS engine into an S14. So to start, when you get your engine, you got to make sure it has all the proper sensors. So you'll need your camshaft, crank, front and rear knock sensors, coils, the injectors, the MAP sensor, which is located in the rear of your intake, the MAF sensor. In most chances, if it's a 5-wire MAF, it'll include your intake air temp. Otherwise, that'll have to be separate. Your alternator oxygen sensors, you'll only need your front two, engine coolant temp, throttle position, and idle air control valve. Now, for the connections between the car and the ECU, you will need to connect the fuel pump and the ignition system. Whether you're going to keep your stock key or run aftermarket switches is up to you. You can do it either way. It's up to you whether you want to connect your speedometer and the tach, and also the check engine light, the data link, you can connect into the ECU as well. That's totally up to you. Now you're going to want to take your stock harness that you get with the engine and find the corresponding ECU pinout for it. Many of these for LS engines can be found at lt1swap.com. That's where I found mine. I can only speak for the one I have. He already laid out a lot of the plugs that can be removed. Take a look at the pinout, go through which sensors you need, what sensors you don't. You want to start at, in my case, I have two plugs, a C1 which is blue and a C2 which is red. You want to work from those plugs, depin the wires you don't need based off the ECU pinout that you have. Work from the connector out to each plug that is not required. As you work your way through the harness, make sure that you keep all the wires nice and neat. You can use painter's tape, zip ties, anything that's going to keep the harness intact. You want to try and keep the shape of the stock harness as much as possible while you're doing it. When you begin to connect wires from the ECU to the vehicle, I highly recommend that you find all the wiring diagrams for the car that the engine's going in. This will help you track down various systems. For instance, on the S14, the plug for the wiper motor is connected in through the engine harness. Now that plug is only called out on the engine harness, not the actual wiring. In order to find that, you need the rest of the electrical wiring diagrams for the S14 chassis. Now for the fuel pump, this is very important when connecting this into an LS system. The Nissan style is different than how the Chevy requires the fuel pump to be wired. With the Nissan ECU, the ground wire is connected to the ECU, which provides the ground signal for the relay. In my case, this 5.3 just requires a chassis ground for the relay. Only an ECU signal goes out to the relay. Depending on which transmission you run, you may or may not need to add a speed sensor in for the ECU. In my case, I'm going with a 350Z transmission, which does not have a speed sensor built into it. I was fortunate enough my car has ABS, which I removed, but I can use the front ABS sensor as my speed signal for the ECU, and also for my speedometer, which I plan on keeping. The tach is a wire from the ECU, which if you plan on using, you'll need to take the signal from the ECU to match what Nissan requires at the dash. The data link, there's a stock one underneath the S14 dash, which can be used. All the wires are there already. You just got to pull one, put it to the ECU, and provide power to another. The rest of the wires can remain. Now, as far as connecting in the ignition system, if you're going to use the stock ignition system, you will need to determine what safeties you'll want to keep in the car. For instance, the park neutral, safety switch, the clutch pedal, etc. You'll need to run a wire from the start through any safeties to the starter motor relay. This relay can be new or the existing one that's in the car. The wire from the start on your key is going to be the switch for the relay. This switch is grounded to the chassis if you're going to do a new relay. If you're going to provide your own ignition system, you're going to need switches for accessories, ignition, and a start button. These will all be wired with individual relays, and pay close attention to any items that need power during cranking of the engine, such as injectors, coils, and engine sensors, as these will need a constant power when you're hitting the start button. Now, some of the other plugs from the engine harness, in my case, I had a few additional plugs that went to the fuse box that was located in the engine bay of the truck. Many of these wires you can cut off that plug. They will all require for you to provide fuses to them. One way to do that is to pick up a fuse block. You can provide power directly from the battery, put your fuses in, and then branch off to whatever wires you need to power. So that's the basics for wiring an LS engine into an S14. Hopefully this helps everybody, or at least some people. If there's anything further you'd like me to go into, I can. Just leave a comment, let me know. So that's going to conclude this video, guys. Thanks for tuning in and checking it out. Again, if you need to see anything further, you have any questions, please comment, like, subscribe, let us know how we're doing, what you guys think. If there's anything else you guys want to see, please let us know. Thanks for checking this out, guys. Till next time.